In today's video, we'll be talking about the core setups for bossing for both battleships and carriers. We'll be going over the missing ships that are left over that could potentially fit into these fleets and have them be basically the last piece of the puzzle. So this video is primarily going to be for endgame players. So if you guys are new or relatively middle ground player, it may not be for you, but you could learn something. So maybe stick around for this video, whatever. Not sure if you guys want to or not, though. But anyways, though, we'll be going over the battleship stuff first. So as of right now, the core battleship setup is this one right here. You have your Musashi, New Jersey, Vanguard backline. This is pretty much the as expected one. I said before Musashi came out that before this, it was Ulrich who was in this slot, and she was going to be the first one to get kicked out if another battleship came in that's really, really good. So in that case, it's this one right here. So Musashi is the new Ulrich replacement. New Jersey still stays because she's an absolute beast, and Vanguard always stays because she's the best backline battleship buffer as of right now. And as for your Vanguards, we have this usual setup. E-Girl is now the tank for the past 2 years now for Vanguard tanking. Helena pretty much never leaves unless you want to use a non-Helena setup, in which case you can replace her with another one that's like durable or does damage, like Anchorage can be fine, Rune Moose can work as well too. Otherwise though, if you want just absolute maximum damage output, Helena is definitely going to stay here as always. And lastly, what used to be the flex slot, Rune Moose or Shimakaze usually go here. Plymouth replaced this. So Plymouth here is an absolute monster of a light cruiser, absolute god tier damage for a light cruiser, and even by Vanguard standards, even does amazing amounts of damage as well too. So she's an absolute phenomenal ship, and she takes the flex slot very, very easily, and easily makes her a core slot because there is no chance she's leaving the Vanguard slot anytime soon. She does amazing damage, and she buffs your flagship, which in this case is Musashi if you have her. So Musashi's already a beast. Plymouth is already a beast. They're not going to leave. So in terms of the battleship setup as of right now, there's not many weak spots available. I mean, you could say Helena's a weak slot because she doesn't do a lot of damage, but her debuff is just... We've been through this before, guys. Her debuff is just way too good. So there's pretty much no space for her to get kicked out without another replacement that does what she does, but does more damage. If that's the case, she's going to be an absolute broken ship because we already know how broken Helena is. Yeah. Or we can get another replacement tank. In Eagle's case, her damage is really, really good, and she's the only heavy armored large cruiser right now naturally. So she's an absolute beast as well too. Otherwise, though, it's really hard to kick her out as well, too. Anyways, though, in terms of battleship setup, there's not many weak spots available. The biggest weak point to battleship setup right now are going to be the gun choices, because right now, if you want to do like a medium armor content fight, it is really, really easy because you have the AP MK6s and you have the SAP gun, which works perfectly well with New Jersey and Vanguard setup because this lets it so Vanguard goes first, and then New Jersey follows up suit. And if you want to run like easy mode gun or something, you do a black shell with easy mode gun right here. And this will let Musashi go third. So that actually works out really, really well. But I say this is the bad gun choice because even though this setup works really, really well for medium armor, the options after that aren't very, very good. For light armor choices, you pretty much only have very, very selective light armor guns available. The MK7, which is New Jersey guns, there's only one available as of right now, and even then it's like very slow on the reload by a lot. So I'm not gonna say it's like the best choice out there, but I mean it's the only choice we have as of right now. So if we had more of these guns, it won't be a big of an issue. But the only good guns we have for HE right now is the Monarch gun, which I don't have as of right now, and the MK6. So these guns are fine by all means, but they're not heavy hitting guns. They're all right guns for the most part. They're not heavy duty. Battleships right now lack a lot of good options for high explosive guns. So their medium or their light armor potential isn't like the best. It doesn't have really high hitting damage guns, but it has decently okay guns to get through most people through the middle stages of the game. But when it comes to like hard bossing, like we're talking maybe Hell in the Meta, or well, there's only one available right now, Hell in the Meta, or Temperance Fight, Arbiter Temperance, then the high explosive potential here is very, very lacking. Also, the heavy armor department is lacking as well too. When we have heavy armor content, these guns right here, they excel in medium armor, but they don't excel in heavy armor. The only gun we have that's really, really good on heavy armor is the Musashi gun, which once again is very, very slow. So it's not going to be working properly if you're going to use Helena, and it's a hard hitting gun, but it's just a very slow gun. In most fights, it's about 80 to 90 seconds. So you're pretty much only going to get about 3 volleys off in one battle, and that's it. Most guns can get off 4 easily. This gun can get off 3, and that's pretty much it. So if you're going to go through the full duration, if you can't end the battle fast enough, which is about 1 or 2 rotations, then the Yamato gun here doesn't really quite excel in that department. Yes, it has really good heavy armor modifiers, 135, but again, it's very, very slow, and you won't get that many rotations off of it. So in terms of battleship sets as of right now, I think in terms of ships, it is really, really good. We have 5 UR ships available right now. That goes into the core set and Helena, obviously, when we use Helena. So it's a very, very strong setup. It's just the gun department is very, very lacking right now. So I say when they make better heavy armor guns and maybe better high explosive guns, then battleships would be really, really good. Not to mention some of the Arbiter fights has that 30% 30% health or under. There's a 50% chance they reduce all shelling damage to 1. So it makes battleships not really that effective on some of the Arbiter fights, and why carriers are just much better there because they can ignore that entire tag debuff entirely. So in terms of weak points in ships, there's not much weakness here for battleships. There are some low hitters like Vanguard and Helena, but for the most part, though, what they bring to the team just outweighs their flaws in damage entirely. So no real weak ships for battleships. It's just the gun department is just very lacking outside medium armor. And as for carriers here, I didn't do my carrier setup. I am dumb. If you guys don't know what the core carrier setup as of right now is, basically Shinano. We throw in E-Girl here. You can change up whoever tank you want. I'm just doing the usual stuff. And like Kazaguma or something, so find her. So this is basically the setup right here. If you want to use the third setup is the flex setup. So Hakuryu Shinano always stays for core setups. E-Girl is your main tank. Kazaguma is going to be your air raid assistant buffer, as well as your healer, as well as side damage as well too. And Helena. And your third slot can be a flex. It can be either another heavy hitter like Arc Royal or Enterprise. It could be a more niche ship like August von Parsifal or Indomitable for light and medium armor. Or it can even be Musashi right here, which is not a carrier by all means, but she does a lot of damage by herself, so you can just toss her in right there, and it works just fine. So it's up to you on what the third slot's going to be. For the most part, a lot of people ran Arc Royal or Enterprise for the longest time. So this is the core setup then, and that's what it's been for about maybe a year or two now in terms of this setup. So when it comes to weak point for this setup, even though it was the most core bossing setup for the longest of time, it does have a lot of weak points. One of the biggest weak points to this setup is that the third carrier isn't solidified. Whereas battleships right here, this is pretty much solidified because we have Musashi, New Jersey, and Vanguard, which does amazing amounts of damage, as well as a lot of synergy backline as well too, with a lot of armor breaks and deep buffs overall. Is a really good, solid core setup for backline. As for your carriers, there's not much core outside the first two, which is Hakuryu and Shinano. These two basically always go together. The third ship isn't really core. Arc Royal is very, very RNG. Her damage output is really high if you proc all your assault carriers. But overall, though, she is just not consistent enough. If you want to use Enterprise, she's a little bit more consistent. But again, She's very RNG because of Lucky E being a 70% proc rate. So she's, once again, another very RNG ship, even though she does do a lot of damage by herself as well too. So that's the biggest thing right now, is that the third flex slot isn't very solidified. Now, some people like that. Personally, I'm all for it. I think having flex slots available in this game is very, very good. It allows for more versatility and more variety when it comes to shipbuilding. Shipbuilding. Ignore what I said. Shipbuilding. So more variety is always good. But as of right now, whereas battleships have a very core setup right here, even before Musashi came out, we had Ulrich being the core setup right there. There's no real core setup when it comes to carriers. You have Hakuryu and Shinano, and then you have that third ship, which is just whatever. Now, when it comes to Vanguards, the Vanguard is relatively fine on damage, but their survivability is very, very lacking. Kazugumo is a destroyer, which means her health pool is very, very low. Even if we go full health on her, she'll probably have maybe 3,500 health, which nowadays for most meta fights is very, very low. She could probably survive some Arbiter fights, like Temperance and maybe Hermit, but Strength destroys Kazugumo on auto battle or manual even, because she does a lot of damage to Vanguards, and Kazugumo has a very low health pool, so she can go down very, very fast. And by putting in Kazugumo, you put Helena in the back line. Helena, as well, is very, very squishy with her health pool of about 4,800 if you bring her. Also has a very low health pool, and she's light armor, and you're putting her in the second most vulnerable spot in this game. If we go to battleship setup, we have E-Girl, Helena, Plymouth. E-Girl is the main tank. Plymouth is also light armor, but her health is absolutely phenomenal. She has 6,700 health. It is insane. So that's not an issue for her. She's an absolute beast back there, and she has a lot of survivability with her shroud and stuff. Whereas Helena back here, she doesn't really tank well. She's going to take the second most damage for your Vanguard, because you got to put in Kazugumo. So even though the carrier setup does a lot of damage, there's a lot of vulnerability to this fleet. The third carrier slot isn't really core, so it can be whatever you want. August and Parsifal, Indomitable, Musashi, Ark Royal, Enterprise. It can be whatever you want. There's no real core setup for the third fleet or third ship, so it's kind of lacking in that department for consistency, especially when two biggest hitters, Ark Royal and Enterprise for carriers, are RNG. Now you can't put in Musashi. Musashi does make the fleet more well-rounded for two carriers and a battleship. But let's say one day you're going to need the Musashi for the battleship setup. Kind of lacking in that department. Yes, you can put Ulrich in here, but if you take out Musashi for Ulrich, the battleship department is going to be lacking a lot of damage as well too. So keep that in mind. Now you can run double Musashi, but if it's OS, you can't run double Musashi, so that's not really a thing. Keep that in mind. In the Vanguard though, Kazugumo, even though she's a great ship, has very, very bad survivability, so if she goes down, it is pretty much GG. You lose that 15% carrier buff with air raid assistance, so that's bad for your carriers. And Helena is taking the second most damage in your front line as well too. So if she goes down, then you also lose a debuff as well too. So when it comes to replacement, if we want to be really, really anal about this, there has to be another third carrier in here that does a lot of damage. Now, Musashi fits this setup just fine and can fix a lot of the problems that the third slot for carriers was having for the longest of time. But if you want to be really consistent and have a proper fleet with full buffs properly for everyone, like Shinano's buff and Kazugumo's air raid assistance, then we're going to need that third carrier in there. So a third carrier that does a lot of damage that's consistent is needed right here. Basically, an Enterprise or Ark Royal that does their damage, but have it be very, very consistent, not RNG. And as for Vanguard, Kazugumo's damage is fine. Her survivability is very, very bad. Basically, a Kazugumo with a little bit more survivability, maybe about 4,500 health, and has about the same amount of damage that she can put out, have that air raid assistance. So we can put her maybe back here and put Helena back in the middle to keep Helena more safe. and have a much more durable second Vanguard tank, which is the backline right here. So carrier setup still does a lot of damage, but lacks a lot of survivability, and that's basically the core problems for the carrier setup. And as for battleships, once again, there aren't really much lacking ships for the battleship department. Musashi and Plymouth fixed a lot of the problems that battleships are facing for the longest of time. Now it's more of the concern of, are they going to get better guns for heavy armor and better guns for high explosives? So that's pretty much it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. I know it was a lot of rambling, but hope you guys learned something from those videos. And the core setups and the best setups are bossing as of right now in Azur Lane. If you guys have any concerns or questions, feel free to let me know, and I'll try my best to respond to them if someone else hasn't responded to them. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.